Hey guys, how's it going? So who's ready for another 5-star ruler named Joan? I know I am, and this one doesn't take 5 years to get rolling properly. Yes, today's subject is the only female pope, maybe, Joan or Johanna. I'll be honest with you guys up top and say I've not read through Trom, so I cannot say what she's like or how she's represented there. As such, I'll be presenting the facts of her life as best as I can from the historical record. So enough about that, let's start talking Catholics. So something that you need to know about this story to understand what's really going on is the standard rules of the papacy. Most important of those to this particular story is that women are not supposed to be allowed to be popes. Why is that, you may ask yourself? Well, to put it bluntly, it was initially because women were viewed as lesser than for the majority of human history, and even regarded as a different species by some. If you ever want to fall into one hell of a rabbit hole, look up the Synod of Macon. In this, a group of Catholics in 585 were debating if women were human and had a soul, because the wording of the Bible was a bit ambiguous on the idea. After much discussion, it was put to a vote and decided by a singular vote in favor that women were indeed humans with a soul. So, that's our baseline right now. Almost half of the Council of Men didn't believe that women were human, and naturally only a human could be the Pope. So then, how did a woman possibly manage to snag a job created by men for men? Well, let's start from the beginning. The first mentions of a female Pope were from 1099, and this Pope was not given a name. It is described as a female disguised as a man, who through her own intelligence and charisma, rose through the ranks of the church and became Pope. However, one day while mounting a horse, she gives birth, and everyone in the procession was so enraged that they tied her to the horse's tail and dragged her and stoned her until she died. It is also mentioned in this document that the Catholic Church struck her name from all official records, hence why there is no name given, and why she may be hard to find. This tale is the one that, if real, holds the most amount of truth, because after this it gets purposefully edited to become a much more clear and concise story. So, for that matter, if there was a female pope in history, we do not have their actual name because the Catholic Church covered it up and refused to acknowledge it. To the vast majority of modern scholars, it is considered a fictional story, but because of how it was handled, it can be viewed through the lens of conspiracy theory, as there are indications that after a certain pope's reign, they changed some rules to be sure that popes were male. So, immediately, the historical veracity of Pope Joan is thrown directly into question. That said, let's look at the story that Fate's rendition of Pope Joan will likely be pulling from. This tale describes her as a woman being named Joan, disguised as a man named John, who accompanies her lover to Athens. Through her own natural intellect, she becomes an unrivaled genius at Athens, and then takes all that she's known back to Rome, where she teaches the masses. She was well loved by her students, and was claimed to have counted some of the brightest minds of Rome among her students. She was so well loved, in fact, that when a vacancy came about to become the Pope, she was selected as the wisest candidate. Supposedly, this was from 855 to 858, and she took on the name and title John VIII. She was the Pope for a little over 2.5 years, during which time she had become pregnant with her lover's child. During a procession, she suddenly went into labor and gave birth to her child. She was immediately deposed of her role as Pope and died shortly after. So disgusted was the church that the alley where the birth took place became a taboo spot, and Pope John's name was stricken from the papal book to hopefully vanish from history. I would just like to call the obvious onto the scene in that this woman was so intelligent and respected, and no foul play is ever mentioned in her legends, that the only sin that she committed, making her a cursed being, was that she was a woman. From here, her legend branches out. Some claim that she didn't actually die, but was instead imprisoned and forced to do penance, while her son would go on to become a bishop. Others still say that instead of dying of natural causes, she was in fact murdered for tricking the Catholics after the fact. Regardless, this is more or less where her story just kind of ends. So then that begs the question, was she real? As stated prior, modern scholars tend to agree that no, she wasn't, based entirely on the fact that we do not have sufficient evidence to suggest that she existed. These include the fact that coins exist bearing the faces of emperors and popes that were in place when she was claimed to have ruled, as well as there being no mentions of the scandal and the histories of the Catholics' enemies who would have certainly used this against them. But does that mean that she was not real at all? Some modern scholars indicate that the erasure from the Catholic Church may have made it difficult to prove such a thing, but it is possible that the time frame that she is normally attested to was wrong. Rather than living and ruling around 855, she may have been alive instead around 1099. This is because this was around the time when they invented the ball inspection for popes to make sure that they were male. This sudden interest in checking the balls of the pope may come from the fear that another woman may come to rise as a pope. Further still, it is possible that this story may have happened, but not as the pope, but instead as a high-ranking bishop. Unfortunately for all of us, the likelihood of her being someone real outside of legend is slim. That said, the concept behind the Popess has continued to live on. For example, the High Priestess Tarot card is supposedly representative of Popess Johanna. This card in mysticism has come to mean intuition or secret knowledge, or if reversed, secrets and silence. Regardless though, that is the Popess Johanna in the books. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. If there's a character that you would like me to cover, let me know down there as well. Do all the YouTube stuff, but for now guys, keep your chin up. Peace.